Hello, and welcome back to Shatter Our Souls with Novaria, where today we are tackling Blacklist number 2, Bull, his milestone events, including the photo radar tickets and the pursuit milestones. And, well, it's a pretty effective day, I think. So, before I get too far into this, does anybody remember that movie from 2013-ish, Need for Speed? Um, Came across it the one day in Walmart and thought, well, what the heck? What is this all about? And I am both impressed and disappointed with that movie. The reality of a movie like that is that video game movies often fail in ways that are hard to describe. Um, if you look at, I'm gonna point a finger at the Need for Speed movie here. You're taking a plot of a standard Need for Speed game, which is effectively, hey, you had a friend or somebody that got hurt, injured, or otherwise lost a race, a vehicle, whatnot, and now you're dealing with the consequences, and some random individual is out on a revenge quest. Yep, that's Need for Speed in a nutshell. And that is both the movie and the video games in a nutshell. And I have to say that I like this, but if you were to put a movie or a game in that type of very simplistic storyline, you're missing 95% of what makes a video game or a movie unique as a media device. So the thing about books, movies, animation, manga, and video games is that every single one of them have their strengths and their weaknesses. Video games have the strength of being able to tell the most complex stories, technically, because they are not limited by time as much, or the time investment as much as some of the other media forms are. Comparatively, I'm gonna say. But they also have the most, whatchamacallit, the most direct method of interaction wherein the player takes control of a character within the game. And it makes it much more personal. The issues that crop up due to whatever happens within the storyline of the game fall directly on the player. And so, in that way, I believe that Need for Speed fails because it's trying to condense a 12, 15 hour video game down to an hour and a half. Speedrunners do it all the time. But it loses so much of the impact of what the game was actually aiming for. It loses out on the effort and energy that the player has to go through and actually spend time learning how to play the game and race, so to speak. That it's just, oh yeah, guy steals a car from a museum and off he goes off to the races. It doesn't necessarily work the same way. Video game movies have always had this issue where because we're taking away player agency, they tend to fall flat by comparison to their video game counterparts. It's not to say they can't be done well. There are certain ones that come to mind that did. But by and large, that's the situation. Anyway, at this moment in time, we are tackling Heat Level 5 because there's a lot that needs to get dealt with in a very short span of time. I need to rack up $200,000 worth of cost estate, which is pretty inexpensive, all things considered. And then an 8-minute long pursuit or greater, as well as tackle numerous roadblocks and spike strips. That's pretty much all there is to it. As we know, not all roadblocks are spike strips, but all spike strips are roadblocks. So it's going to be a pretty simplistic, I suppose, day today. The police in Need for Speed Most Wanted, I've always had a fascination for because they're okay. All things considered, they're a tad more aggressive than I think the real life police would be. But what it gains in that aggression is the feeling of desperation. The police officers in Rockport are fighting desperately to get this street racing situation back under control. Or eliminated altogether. And so, the fact that Mia, in Need for Speed Most Wanted here, ends up helping the player by setting up some of the races, as well as, shall we say, helping the police by taking in the racers once the Blacklist racers have been defeated. It all kind of ties back in on itself as it becomes more of a, how you say, there's more going on behind the scenes. You can sense it a little bit that the police are getting something done. The more that they get done, the more resources they have to access. That's why Heat Level 5 doesn't show up right off the bat. It's something that comes up later on as they have gained a reputation for being able to take down these intensely difficult individuals to catch. But part of it, I think, also comes down to Need for Speed Most Wanted has a... I like desperation. That's the right word, I think. Mia's desperate to help you. The police are desperate to catch the Blacklist. And you're kind of in the middle of a revenge quest trying to get back at Razor, which just so happens to help everybody else out. It all ties back in on itself near the end of the game and makes for a wonderful final result. I think part of it is that the Blacklist racers tend to be pretty good at hiding out in between their challengers. So until they lost and were removed from office as a Blacklist racer, they were kind of just there. Alright. These guys are really having a rough day. A little bit of a damage control, apparently. Yeah. So, I want to point out a couple of things about the next game in the franchise. Need for Speed Carbon. Overall, I think Carbon does a decent job of following up where Most Wanted leaves off. However, I also feel like it struggles in many areas that Most Wanted did not. The police in Most Wanted are a fixture. It's meant to be part of the overall storyline. That the police are this omnipresent individual or group. And Palmont City of Need for Speed Carbon. Nope. Let's not get stuck today. The police are there, but they have less influence, I find. Cross is there. His whole spiel is that he is settling a score from Rockport. But overall, Palmont City kind of flips the Blacklist 15 sideways. This whole city is a battleground. The point of it is that the individuals at play, Darius has control of the largest section of the city. But Kenji's Bushido, Wolf's TFK, and Angie's 21st Street are all vying for territory. The more territory you have, the more money you make, and so on and so forth. So, I kind of like the premise of Carbon, but I find that it falls a little bit short of what its goal would have or should have been. The Blacklist 15 is replaced by 4 rather impressive racers, but the early to mid game kind of just stagnates. It doesn't get all that much more difficult. If anything, it gets easier after you defeat your first after you defeat the first of the 4 bosses. 2 and 3 go down so simply that it's laughable. And the game doesn't really pick it up again until the finale. Most Wanted, on the other hand, has a steady increase in difficulty that shows off just how each individual racer is better than last. Theoretically. Obviously, AI is kind of the big what if in here. But there was the attempt, the goal of making 15 increasingly difficult racers, each with a bigger point to prove than the one before them. So, where does all of this let up? Carbon falls a little flat because its difficulty curve is a uphill mountain, and Most Wanted kind of has this steady incline that tapers off near the end. Fine. The vehicle selection in both games is delightful. Overall, not bad. But the thing is that both of them focus in on a revenge story of sorts. The player was harmed in some way by Darius and Razor, and the plot of the game is getting back at and defeating said other opponent because they had effectively made your life a bit more difficult than it needed to be at a given point in time. Oofty, that's a heavy hitter. Alright, we're getting close to the end of the chase here. Looks like about 15,000 left. Maybe less. Okay. So, police are having a grand old time. I kind of wish the spike strips worked on the police. I think that would be funny. But I digress. They have officially fallen off, which means it is now time to tackle the rest of this challenge in the way we know best. Run away. The super secret Joestar technique. Anywho, I have a feeling that in early January, at the burn rate of this particular series, we'll be seeing a new franchise make its appearance within this channel. Stay tuned, because it might be a little more silly than you might think. Anywho, if you like what you see, or wanting to see the finale, drop a like, leave a subscribe, and I hope that we can catch you soon. Until then, I hope you have a good one. You know, These police are incredibly frustrating to get around. Like, oh, excuse me, I'm hiding, you're running away. That's the way this thing works. Hello? Get away from my car. I am now in cooldown. Wait, I'm in cooldown? Oh, I apparently went past my goalpost a little bit. Oh, it's one of those I need to leave the hiding spot to enter the hiding spot for the cooldown bar to work right. Huzzah! Anywho, until next time, I hope you have a good one and be good to one another out there.